Going on, everybody? Happy New Year 2024. Thanks for tuning in to the Not So Famous podcast. I'm your host, Manager Marco. Catch me on all my social media at the Manager Marco's Instagram, Manager Marco's on Facebook. I'm everywhere. HomeTeamManagement.com is my website. And hope everybody had a great New Year's. And tonight, I want to continue the theme of pretty much my journey in the music business. And one of the guys that's played a role is the man that I'm going to bring in a second here, Mr. Mig, multi-platinum producer. He has allowed me access to his studio, and he's very generous with his time when I have a million questions. So I'm going to bring him up. This is my guy, Mr. Mig.
What is up? What an intro, bro.
You like
Dang,
that?
I didn't realize I played any part in anything that you know, but
Well,
I
I
appreciate
mean,
it.
well, I ask you a million questions because I'm like a sponge here. And then, you allow me to sit in your studio sessions, and we have one on Tuesday, right?
Yeah,
I believe.
yeah, yep.
And I talked to Gino. I'm going to play more of a creative role too, moving forward. So,
Good.
everybody has a role. I'm going to get Rob on
Yeah,
here, and he has a role. Like, so
it,
that's like the theme of my podcast for the first 10 episodes is how I got where I'm at right now.
no, I
You know,
love it, man. And it's just funny you say that because, like, I don't think much when I mean, you know that we've talked enough to you know that I just do what I do. I don't really think much about like the impact that it might have on somebody. Learning
right,
a little something, watching me do something. I just do it, and I do it because it's what I do. I don't really think much about what happens after, but I do have, like you just said, and I've had people, hit me up and say, hey, I was at a certain like seminar or something and watching you talk, and oh my God, and like
right.
I learned so much, and I'm just like, that's just me just spitting out all I know. It's not. I don't really know what happens after that. I don't even know what's happening when I'm doing it sometimes.
No, no. I mean,
But
listen, man. You're no slouch, dude. I mean, you. We're gonna get into all that, but you're very. I mean, you're probably. I haven't been around many studios. Let's be honest, right? But I mean, you really, your voice, like the way you record, from Deneen and how we brought Trevor in from, and all that stuff. That was just. I mean, the voice, the way you record the artists, man, is top notch, man. You're really good at what you do. So I
appreciate
have
that.
to,
Yeah.
I have to, sponge off a guy like you a little bit. You know what I
No,
mean?
I love it. I love it, man. It's like I even had the conversation recently as I'm actually like tilting my career a little bit towards the education side now with people, and I'm actually I do a lot of like personal education with young producers and artists, and I love it. I said it the other day. I said I think I like teaching more than I like doing at this point, not because I can't do, just because I
Right,
find it more interesting to watch other people go through the process of like not knowing and then knowing. And like I see the light go off and they're just like, that's all I had to do to make something sound like that. And I'm like, that's
right.
it. You're overthinking. Don't like, let's not overcomplicate the process. So, yeah, I love teaching this stuff, man. It's like, I see some people out there like, oh, I don't want to give anybody my secret. Why? Their secrets? It's not really. I mean, what are you afraid of? That in one day they're going to become, what you've done in 25 years because they
Right,
learned a technique. Like,
right.
I love it. I love to see people learn, man. It's awesome to me. It's the best thing for me. Yeah.
I have a youngster. I have a youngster that wants to. His mom was asking me, so I'll talk to you on the side about that. So how long
Cool.
you been? How long you been producing? How long? Like, how did you? How long you been producing? And how did you get into it?
Yeah. I mean, there's no specific line where I jumped from not producing to producing. I'll just say that I've been creating music since. Oof. All right. I'm gonna try to see how I can say this to where it answers the question, but at the same time, it's probably gonna lead us down a little bit of a rabbit hole. As you know, with my ADHD, it usually happens anyway.
Yeah.
I started making music at a very, very young age. My brother had a rock band. Rest in peace, my brother Dave. He was 11 years older than me, but he let me play keys at 7 years old with his 17-year-old, 18-year-old rock band. High school rock band. And so I started mimicking hit songs, and then shortly after, within a couple of years, I started like making up my own stuff on the
Right.
keys. So fast forward, I was doing music every day of my life. You know, what was it, 7, 8, 9, 10? The next 10 years, I was still creating music. And I think within that time, around 15 years old, I started to write songs. And then
Right.
I started to make the music for those songs. So it just evolved, over a long time, the production side. And I guess we could say I started making like a living at producing and doing demos for people, and actually like, now I can say I'm a producer and I'm out here and I'm like trying to get my name out there as a
Right.
producer. Probably
Right.
the age of like 21, 22, maybe a little bit younger. I started charging people locally for production, and by the time I was 24, I finally got on one of my biggest records, one of my biggest early records, which was actually a remix of LeAnn Rimes' "How Do I Live," and
Right.
that was back in like 1997. So we're talking about
How many copies did you sell at?
Well, the song was already doing really well on Billboard Hot 100. It hit number
Mhm.
2. It peaked at number 2, and then it started falling off the charts. They wanted someone to do a really cool remix and try to like, extend the life. So I
Sure.
did the remix, and then it hit number 1 across 4 different charts, including Top Dance Records. It hit number 1 on Top Dance Records, the Hot 100 finally. So like 4 different charts. The remix, I believe, did about 500,000 copies within like the first few months.
What's that? A gold
So
record? You got yourself
I
a
got
gold record.
triple platinum. It became a triple platinum. I became part of a triple platinum record. They didn't really
Right.
separate the remix as a separate entity. It was kind of like the CD single. At some point, they started including the remixes on them, and it gave it a lot of new life. And that was my first big record. And yeah, so it ended up being like I got one of the triple platinum plaques. So
Right. It's because I know, because I go in your studio and it's
that's right.
hanging right up,
You've seen it. You've seen it.
right
Yeah.
up in my face as soon as you walk
That's
in.
right. That's right.
Who's the biggest artist that you've ever worked with?
All right. Well, crazy enough, the biggest artist that I've ever worked with was Taylor Swift.
Ooh.
Now, she wasn't the biggest artist at the time. She was 14
Right.
years old, and
Right.
I had worked with her and her family, and we worked for about 3 days, 4 days. I was at the time being managed by former owner and once again another great person in my life, rest in peace, Joe Tarsia, who was the owner of Sigma Sound Recording in Philly.
Sigma Sound, yeah.
Joe was at the time a co-manager of mine, along with another great music industry legend, Alan Rubens, who used to have QVC, the label that QVC owned, which was Q Records, and Alan was involved with so much multimedia. But the two of them were co-managing me at the time, and a young Taylor Swift had. This is what she told me was they looked me up because she was a fan of LeAnn Rimes. So funny enough, that one record led to me working with her, and just developing some of the early records that she had, getting to see her as like a completely newer artist. Like I said right then and there, like this girl is going to be a huge pop star one day, even though she wanted to be a country star. And
right.
We fought on that, and we didn't fight, but I kind of said to them, I think you're really going to be a pop star, and you fast forward 5 years from that time, and she finally broke through. It took her about 5 years.
Right.
We stayed in touch, me and the family, during that time. Just kind of like seeing how things are going, and anytime they needed a little bit of advice about something, I would give my 2 cents on what I think she should do and what they should do, and it was cool. I didn't go along for the longer ride, unfortunately, but hey, I didn't want to be a country producer, and that's what it was at the time.
Right.
But definitely was the biggest artist that if you want to go by like who's the biggest artist on the planet right now, I think she might be.
Right. Yeah, I think she might be.
And one of the biggest pop artists in the history of music, and super proud, and really amazing to say that I was in the room with that girl when she just had an idea, and like we recorded a bunch of songs, and the 2 songs that I did were on her very first live tour at the Lee Sport. It was called the Lee Sport Arena tour, but she's definitely one of the biggest. I mean, I have credits on a lot of other legendary artists
Hey, you got a Beyonce plaque that's hanging out right there.
Yeah, I got one over here, and I got,
Oh,
I
yeah.
worked on a Madonna record. A lot of them were remixes. They're official mixes for the
Right.
labels. They would call on me and whoever I was collaborating with at the time, and
Right.
we would knock out some records that they could use to market the record and push it across different genres and different charts. And I think I've done a few hundred. So really
Right.
cool. It's really cool, So even like right now, I just did a record on Vanessa Williams, legendary actor, singer.
Yeah, she's
Just did
great.
another record on her, and shout out to my man Mick Murphy from The System, who happens to be like my one of my favorite artists of all time. Actually, called me one day and said, "Hey," he goes, "Miggy, you wanna work on Vanessa Williams?" I'm like, "What?" Yes,
Yeah, of course I want to work on Vanessa Williams.
So that just happened. So I'm just waiting for that record to come out. It's finished, and the music video is being shot. So
is that part of a like she's releasing a single and you got the remix on the single, or is that just you producing the song?
Well, okay, so it was considered a co-production, but really, technically, it's a remix. So they worked on the song, and the song was really good.
Right.
And they handed it to me and said, it needs something. What does it need for pop?
Right.
And I listened to it. I said, I know what I can do to this to like make it into a mainstream pop / dance record. So, excuse me. So yeah, the vocals were done. Some of the production was done, and then I took it and I kind of like took all of that and dropped it into the computer and started ripping it apart. And a week or two later, I think it came out to be like a fire record. So I can't wait for everybody to hear that. So technically, it would be a remix, as I call a remix, is where I get the vocals, and I'm not in the studio with the artist at that time.
Right.
But it's kind of like I worked on the final product for them to put out, and they shot the video to it and everything. So yeah.
Right. And you've kind of broadened your horizon. You don't just do music artists. You've also branched out in TV and movies, right?
Yeah, I mean, over the years, I've done quite a lot of work on like TV commercials and movie trailers, and I did a few mainstream TV show themes in the last few years. Unfortunately, a couple of those shows are like not even on the air anymore, but they aired for a while and it was cool. But branching out from just producing music for like artists and for radio, and then going into multimedia was really awesome. I did about 40 major brands, including like, let me think of the names of the companies, like I did stuff for like Discovery Channel History, Kettle One, which is the big vodka company, Kettle One Vodka. I had done like this really cool multimedia 360 tour for a company that I worked many years for called Coffee Labs in New York. We did a bunch of multimedia campaigns like that, and there's a lot like New York Life Insurance and Oppenheimer and like a lot. I can't even tell you right now. I'd have to go like into my credits and read them myself, because projects come in, I finish, they go out, and I go, I don't remember working on that. Like I did something for was it Instagram, like an official filter for Starbucks. One of those filters, I actually produced one of the audio on one of the official like filters for Starbucks and Instagram. So yeah,
how do you come about doing that? Like how does that, like they just approach you, or do you have I got a lot of friends that want to produce, or they produce, and they're not like on your level, but they would probably be interested in some of the knowledge that you have to spill here. So how would you go about getting your song synced on a TV show?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it all comes from like your network.
Yeah.
All the great things that I always said, like it was never really about me. It was always about my relationships and the relationships that I kept. And really that is your biggest asset in business in general, and not just this business. I think business in general, everybody thinks that there's something special about them. I don't think there's anything special about me. I think it's the fact that I have friends, and like my friends look out for me. It's like, hey, we have this blah, blah, blah project. We think you'd be good for it. Or vice versa. Like, hey, what's going on? What do you guys got going on? It's like, you know what? We have something that might work for you. And it's like, so either I'm tapping into them, or they're tapping into me. Sometimes it'll come out where it's like there's a situation that works. So for instance, I have a great friend named Brett Cohen, and Brett was a recording artist, and Brett actually became famous by being the young kid who pranked the world into thinking he was famous. This was years ago. It was one of the first viral videos on YouTube, and there was like 5 million views the first day it came out. And he just dressed up like a celebrity and hired a fake camera crew and hired fake bodyguards and went to Times Square in New York. And this was a project for college, I believe. And he became famous overnight because basically people flocked to him. So I ended up working with him, with my then partner Mike Rizzo. Kind of met Brett and did a record on him together. And fast forward, Brett and I stayed in contact for many years. And Brett ended up going from being this young kid doing nothing to being like kind of a big executive at a company, and never forgot about our working experience and said,
right.
You know what, man, I'm doing something with this company, and, I want to talk about bringing you in. So it was really about like, hopefully leaving a mark on people and them enjoying the experience they had with you, and then remembering you at some point. And it really is like winning little mini lotteries. I always say, like, every time I get something, I don't always go, oh yeah, I'm so good, I got that because I'm just so great at what I do. I go, I'm really lucky. I'm really lucky that I still have some friends in this business that think of me when they have something. So it's like, that's it. It's connect with people, build some really great relationships, and just nurture them. And my relationships are not fake. They're like, these are friends of mine. These people actually I like, I like, or I love, or I'd like have a great relationship with, or we just get along really well. We have things in common to talk about, and I can call them and say, look, I kind of have something on my mind. Like, what do you think I should do about X, Y, Z? And they're like, I think you should call so-and-so. Here's a phone number, or here's an email address, or, that's how it's always been. Some of the TV stuff came through from a very good friend of mine named Billy Terrell, who happened to be, he had a deal with a company called Spirit Music Collective. And Spirit actually did a lot of the big TV shows. And once again, Billy was someone that I met 25 years ago when I was young. I just got in the music business. He was a friend of Vince Goes Around in Circles. He worked with Joe Tarsia, who I mentioned before, who was my manager and owned Sigma Sound.
It's all who you know. You're right.
Right. And this is talking about 25, 26 years later. And Billy's like, he's hooked me up with a couple of things. With my last studio, he plugged me into that whole situation where I had this huge studio in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And that was because Billy thought of me when they had this studio. And they're like, no one's really doing anything great with it. Do you want to, take it over maybe? And that was a process. Then fast forward a few more years later. Hey, I have a deal with Spirit. I think you should take a meeting with them. I think they could use you. You'd be a great writer to work for them. I go down to Spirit, and 3 months later, I'm producing stuff for TV shows. So it's not about us. It's about how we fit into these really great people's lives. And like, if they can see what we have to offer, hopefully they grab you and say, hey, you do this. That's how Hollywood works. It's how it all works.
It's funny you say, you nailed it. I mean, that's the one of the main things that's been told to me by one of my mentors. It's all about connections, and if the longer you've been in the business, the more connections you have. You got a ton. Caputo's got a million connections that he has, and it's all about building the connections and maintaining those friendships, connections, whatever you want to call it. So that's funny you said that. You nailed it.
Yeah, and like, let me just add, don't let your ego get in the way too. Okay, Oof. in front of the Instagram filters and everything else.
Yeah,
you want people to perceive you as having it all together and being the leader of your realm, and like you could do so many great things for other people because you're unstoppable. Behind the scenes, if you're vulnerable, like I feel vulnerable, and I'm like, sometimes I'm a little lost, and it's crazy to say that I've done so much, but there's times where I'm like, what's my next move? And and I got to think, like, I have an idea in my head. Who do I tap for that? Who do I hit for that? Don't be afraid to ask. Some of the greatest things I've ever been given in the entertainment business or my career were the result of me kind of like going, you got any ideas? Like, what can I do? Do you know anyone that you could plug me into for this or for that? Because listen, I'm asking, but I'm also offering what I do. And there's many times where I was super grateful, and I am, for the opportunities given to me, but then that gratefulness is reciprocated. Like, well, we're glad we found you too because you're a hard worker and you do great product and like you're easy to work with. So don't be afraid to kind of like ask for a little guidance. No matter who you think you are, you are is irrelevant in the grand scheme of where you want to go. Even the
Right.
biggest and the best out there, like, look, presidents, they need our votes, right? People need your votes, and people
Sure
need
do.
support, no matter who you are.
Right.
You always can use the help of others. And if you know who that is, don't let opportunities pass you by because your ego.
Right. And there's
Yes.
what I'm finding out, my man, is there is a shit ton of ego out there in the music business. A shit ton. There's people that I thought were my friend, and they just shit on me just to
Yeah.
get, you know. There's
Hello,
there's
I've been
people.
there. I've been there many
Right.
times.
I mean, you know, right? I'm still in this 8 years. You're in there. You got more than me. You know, more years than
30
this.
years.
Yeah.
30
You
years.
know,
I was a
I got
kid.
people. I'm watching people who shouldn't be in the music business because they're in a certain, you know, situation or genre that they're just right in the music business. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
how did that even happen? You have no clue. You have no ear. You have nothing. You just want to be famous yourself, and you're nothing but a fan in the end. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? But it's just like the floodgates are open. Anybody can release music, and so it's like, oh my god, man, whoa. But
Yeah.
you got to keep the focus on yourself and your team. You know?
Yeah, man. Like, it's funny because, like, I think of things sometimes like, wow, man, you're really becoming an old man, because, like, you start thinking like your parents and your grandparents. You start hearing yourself say the same things, like, this generation's got it easy with music. Like, I used to have to, like, connect wires to computers and, like, to
Yeah.
units, to, like, took me days to get, like, everything set up sometimes to create a full production on a song. But that's
Hmm.
just the way it is. Like,
Yeah.
you could look at it that way, like, we did the hard work so that they can have it easy, but they have it hard in a different way. They have it hard in a different
Right.
way because competition now gets elevated. The playing field, people think the playing field got leveled. It
Right.
didn't get leveled. It created more competition.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
that's the thing. So longevity, is sometimes is a byproduct of having it a little tough,
Right.
because people say, how you been in the entertainment business? I go, I don't know. I guess it's just because, like, I've gone through the prehistoric times of music production to, like, this stuff is easy now. I turn on my computer and I could knock out 3 mixes in a day, and you got
Right.
people still trying to figure out how to mix one song, and I'm done with three. It's like, because I had to do it the hard way. So this is
Yeah.
easy. This is like boom, boom, boom. Everything's right there, and
Yeah.
I can
Easy for
change stuff.
you.
It's easy for me because
Right.
I came from a time when I stuck through the time of the transitions from, like, the analog gear, and, like I
Yeah.
said, I used to sweat in sessions. The computer would stop working in the middle of a recording session. Like, the mic wasn't getting input through whatever unit it had to get plugged into to get into the computer. It's like, shit, I got to call tech support, and I got to figure out why. I got to go drive to a store and buy a new cable, and, like, something's
Right.
wrong, and, like, yo, it was crazy, this stuff. Like, the
It
memory in the
was.
computer. Oh, the computer had dirt in it. I had to open it up and, like, blow it out with a dust gun.
Yeah.
Just crazy things. So you get to this place and you're like, oh wow, like, I was in the trenches, so now this is kind of like easy and easier for me in that respect.
You
But
just
the
pull
younger
up to this.
generation, they struggle. Even
Yeah.
Go
You pull
ahead.
up to the studio with your laptop, plug it in, you're ready to go.
You can, yeah, you
You
can.
know
I
what
mean,
I'm
that's
saying?
that. I mean, I bring a laptop with me to the studio same way. I
Right.
have, I have my home studio here, and then I have
Right.
my
That's your home.
my full studio. I call it the commercial studio. It's
Right.
out for whatever
Yeah,
plus
and
projects.
that's what I was gonna get at next. So you have you're at your home studio, and you have a studio in I'll say Blackwood, New Jersey.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's kind of where I met you through Gino 418
Yes.
Music and Rob from
Yeah.
Humag. How did that? Because you three both you had all you at one point pre-COVID had your offices, you had your studio there. Gino had the
Yeah.
418 there. Rob had Humag, and anytime you went in there, there was something going on. There was tons of
Yeah.
laughs, food. I mean, it was always something going on. And how did how did that come about? Where you guys, kind of teamed up, in the same building and
All right. Well, long story. We're going back about 10 years ago. Rob and I have been friends for forever.
of course Rob knows
We
everybody.
went to the same high school together, and everything else. Talking about Rob Schwartz from Humag Multimedia and ACX1 in Atlantic City, which is the big pier.
The big pier he owns now. Yeah. How about that?
Turning into like a massive entertainment complex,
Yeah.
which I'll be part of that as it's evolving.
Right. Sure.
But right now, he's the man there. But Rob and I have been friends forever, and I ended up getting the studio in Cherry Hill at the old building before the building was sold years ago So I
Right.
had this studio, my original Audio Max Studios in 2010-ish. And you know, I moved in there and made the deal and had this place and I had all these offices and you know, we were friends, he and I, but he was working more like at home at the time. So I said, I got all these offices, man. Just like get out of your house and like move into the studio, you know?
Yeah.
I want you there. And, you know, I think it'll be good energy, good synergy. And so, you know, he came in there and you know, fast forward maybe a year or two, Gino came through as a client back then with his label and some artists, and I believe this is how it started. And you know, we hit it off. You know, G, I love
Sure.
G, and
Of course.
he's my kind of person, man. You know, down to earth and just another regular Italian guy. And I say Italian guy. It's funny enough because Rob's a Jew. My mom's a Jew, so that makes me half Jew. And the other half of me is Sicilian. So I get along with both sides. But yeah, I see both sides of the coin here. So you know, after a while, I was like, Gino was, you know, starting to get the 418 label to kind of like move. So it went from being client to kind of like, hey, you too, like, there's an office. Why don't you just come here? My goal was I wanted the energy. I wanted the energy around me. I don't like going to the studio and it being quiet. And it's just me walking into a studio and just like setting up for a session and me, you know, and I have all this extra space. I'm like, I just always felt like energy creates more energy. So so I had, you know, two of my favorite people, you know, in two different offices, and you know, and that's really how it happened. I just from there we kind of just like partnered up on a lot of projects, all three of us on different things, and you know, but at the same time we all grow our businesses independently. So we're not one company, we're separate companies, just under this. We were just under the same roof for most of that time.
Right.
COVID came, kind of split things up a little bit for all of us, so we're all kind of separate again, and that's, you know, and that's fine. It is what it is. We evolve and things change. But
is that why you seem to be at your home studio more than you are at your main studio?
Yeah, it is. Just because like I can do the same thing I do there when I'm not working directly with someone. If I'm doing like a mix project or just, you know, creating some tracks for my website maxbeats.com, which is my beat licensing site, or doing like a remote project for like a client that's in another country, they're not going to be there anyway with me in person. So I find that since I'm not on a clock on someone else's time, I just do my work. And if I want to get up and like go get something to eat or take a break or run out, it's not interfering with anybody. So I can just do stuff at my own pace. And whereas like when I'm working with somebody, you know, I have to be there with them in person. And then plus like you're kind of like seeing I'm by myself. So it's like, like in between doing that stuff, I'm not talking to anybody. There's nobody really around. So I might as well like go talk to my dog. Go talk to my dogs. No,
I love being in the studio. That's why, like, I'm looking forward to our session coming up. I just love being in the studio. I had a conversation with Gino today, and I was like, look, I need more of a creative role. Like, I just don't want to be the sitting the guy. I need like to be involved, you know, even though a lot of the dance stuff, you know, isn't really what my forte is. But he said, you got a great ear. Like you'll know if it's, you know,
you do
song need. So, you know, I said, all right, you know, we have a couple of studio sessions, I think, coming up with you that I think I'm
sure,
gonna try to be more vocal on. But yeah, get my name on some stuff. Because but yeah. So I mean, I love being in the studio, like the energy and the way. I mean, when we're in with Deneen, it takes it shouldn't take 3 hours to get us, you know, shit done, but you know, we all mess around.
It doesn't.
It just never,
and it doesn't.
Never
That's
ends.
the thing. It doesn't. We're quick. We're I mean, listen, if I'm gonna be like egotistical or whatever, conceited or whatever you want to call it, or like self-focused on one thing I will say is I'm quick. And that's because once again, the ADD does not like things to take too long. So I've developed a process in how I work with artists, and people say, well, I don't want to be rushed. I don't ask anybody. I don't rush anyone, but I have a different process. I have a different process to how I approach recording and how I approach producing. And versus stopping the artist after every other word because I didn't like something I heard, I just let them sing. I let them sing. Sing it all as best as you can, because really that's what it's about. It's like you're a recording artist, like you're not studying for the test right before the test. Like you know what you're supposed to do. And then I kind of like take it and tear it apart, and then I punch them in and I get some things that don't sound right fixed, And
Right.
that's it. We're done. I take the rest of the work and I put it on myself after that, because honestly, the editing and mixing process is what I really, really enjoy, way more than the actual press the record button and sit there and listen. I'm not,
Right.
my attention span's like I'm falling asleep. So I let them sing. Just sing it. Sing it.
Right.
This is what you do. Your job. This is your job right now. This is like what you're great at. Sing, 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 sing. I'll record all the takes I need. And then
Yep.
you could go home. We're good.
Right.
I'm going to finish this bad boy up, get the effects and get it edited and get the pitch correct. And if I need you, I will let you know. And that's how I do it.
Right.
But
You're amazing with the vocals, because listen, everybody you have in there is pretty talented that come in and sing, right? Some may not be as talented as others. And listen, I'm like, it's good. She's good. She could sing, but she's not. After you get done with it, I'm like, whoa, man, like that sounds phenomenal. Like
I appreciate
it's not,
that.
you're not cheating. That's just the way it is in music, right? You add that, you add your, things to it.
Well, I was just about to say, I mean, based on that, just understand that most of the artists you hear on the radio are not awesome off the radio. Or when I say radio, I mean radio, streaming, Spotify, wherever you're hearing them.
Right.
They're not awesome. And I'm not going to name any big names, but I've, even being a remixer, I've had access to vocals by the biggest and best in the world. And I've had vocals and I go, wow, by themselves without the music behind them. Like, I have to go and actually do some pitch correction on a vocal that's probably been pitch corrected 1,000 times already. Yeah, that was released already, but I still hear things that I want to fix. And it's like, I don't take that as like they suck or they're not good. It's just, that's the typical artist or human being. They all have had work done to their vocal at every level. It's not why they were signed. I see other newer artists get offended, like they got a record deal and I could sing better than them, but it's not about that. That's what you're missing. Not about how good they are, how good you are. I tell artists, I don't care how great of a singer you are. Just be great enough so that this song sounds good. I don't need you to go beyond that. I don't need you to try to be, Whitney Houston or Mariah Carey with 7 octaves. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Do the song, this song, not their song. Do this song. And no matter how good you do, and you're going to hear it and go, oh, but I don't like how I did this. I don't like how I did that. I'm like, just go relax.
Yeah.
Come back in 5 minutes and tell me you still don't like it. Because if I say, no, it's perfect, it's good enough, and watch I'm going to get it exactly how I need it, you're going to save your voice. I like to save their voice. I try not to let them put too many miles on the voice. There's a limited time once they hit the studio before all the effort that they try to overexert starts killing things in their voice. And then I have a small window to get the best take. And then what happens is they start hearing themselves not sounding as good because they're trying too hard. And then I'm starting to get like diminishing returns as things go on. And it's like, I just want you to be quiet. Just like, do this take. Let me hear it. Let me see what I can fix as best as I can. And then we're gonna plug in all the other parts. And you're not gonna leave with a hoarse voice. You're not gonna leave with like, where you can't sing another song. So that's my goal. It's why I do things the way I do, is because I've learned over the years that I just don't believe in the 70 take sessions and, stopping after every 2 words and having them start again. There's also something that happens mentally to a person when you keep telling them they're wrong.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's flat. I don't care if it's flat, if it has a great take and it sounds great. It may be slightly flat, but that's why I bought all these tools.
Yeah, sure. All the plugins,
I spent all these tens of thousands of dollars on software that I've learned how to use to a point where it's like, that's great. It's 99% perfect. 1% is a flat piece. I'm going to fix it. You're going to sit there and you're going to relax and, we'll get ready to do the next piece. So, yeah. That's my long answer.
Right. That's a good answer. I mean, I'm hoping that I get some producers or wannabe producers to watch this or listen to it. What's your thoughts on charts? Like, you have your Billboard chart, right? That's your main Billboard everything, right? They have a Billboard for everything, right? And then you have all these, then you have like all these other charts that you see out there that people are like, oh, I'm number, 17 on the, blah, blah chart. Like, are those charts, I won't say, I don't know if the relevance the right word. Valid. Yeah.
As the kids say these days, valid, my kids.
Yeah. Is that, are those, because I know there's a lot of promoters out there that you, listen, let's be honest, you're not getting on iHeartRadio, right? No. Without having a major deal and major money behind you. So you have everything else. You have all the other radio stations, which they count for your media base, right? And you get accounts. But there's a lot of charts out there, and a lot of times I see, people, oh, I paid this promoter this, and it's like, oh, I'm number 17 on this chart. It's like,
Yeah.
$5,000, I probably would have put that
you don't want to
somewhere.
hurt their feelings either, because
No,
I know where you're going with this, and
you know what I'm saying?
I do, and
I don't know enough.
There's two ways to look at it. There's two ways. There's more than two ways, but here's the two ways that I look at it, and I always have looked at it. Starts with common sense. So when I was an artist, I started out as a recording artist. I started out as a singer-songwriter, singer-songwriter, self-produced,
Right.
and work with other people.
Right.
And the chart thing actually is the same thing as the manager thing, the same thing as the record label thing. And what I'm about to say is I'm gonna connect it all for you. When making a decision on what's important, ask yourself, what has it done for someone else, and what is it going to do for me?
Right.
It's that simple. So, okay, being on a certain chart, what has it done for past artists that were on that particular chart? Okay,
Right.
So that's one way to look at it. The second is, it's a story that you're creating, and is this really something that you want to put in the story? Like, is it something that really creates a good story? Like, okay.
I think it does, right?
Well,
hey, I'm on this chart.
Well, it depends. Okay. If you have charted on a major chart, and we're going to say Billboard, or we're going to say Music Week if you're a European artist. If you've charted on those charts, most people know what that is. Okay.
Yeah.
Most people that are enthusiastic about music business and are either an artist or aspiring artist have heard the word Billboard, and immediately it sparks like, oh wow, like if you're on Billboard, that's big. And I will say, the first time my name was printed in Billboard magazine in 1998, I kept that issue of Billboard open on my dining room table for a week, and I walked by it every week, and I glued it and I looked at it with the plaque on the wall and that, and just going, holy shit, I made it. Yeah. Like, that was my thought process. Like, I'm in fucking Billboard magazine, and I'm sorry, cursing.
Sorry.
I'm in Billboard magazine. Like, a year ago, I was nearly homeless, and now I'm in Billboard magazine.
Right.
And like, that's part of a story that I was proud to include in my story. So there are other like little organizations that charge people to put them on their chart.
Yeah.
That no one's ever heard of.
Right. Those are
and not to demean anything, but first of all, if you're paying to be in a chart and your music's never been heard by anyone, don't do it, because it's just not part of your story. It's just not.
It's a flex. All it is a flex that you can post on Instagram or Facebook.
But is it a flex when you have to pay for the chart? When you have to pay for the
no, because you're
everyone else can do it, right? And everyone else can do it.
Anybody can do it.
Now, somebody might argue and say, well, don't you pay a promoter and you end up in Billboard? That's a completely different level.
That's a different level.
You're not paying to be on a chart. What you're doing is you're paying for someone who has the knowledge of how to get your music to anybody that's actually relevant, who will then report that they play your music to a major chart. Now, there's a handful of people in the U.S. who do that. If you're fortunate enough to have those people hear your music and you had to pay someone who was the gatekeeper to get you to those people, well, and they had the relationships with those particular reporting DJs, well, now, that the promo company's doing a great job, and you obviously have good music and you've made it onto a chart, because the people that could choose you or not choose you over someone else they listened to that day said that your stuff was actually worthy of them putting it on their chart. So there's a difference. You're not paying to go on a chart. You're paying for access to at least have someone who can say, I like this enough to put them on my chart countdown or whatever it is, to be on that chart. And that becomes worthy of going on your story. So, yeah, like this is all to me was always common sense. Like, and it's the same thing with social media, numbers and likes. And how is it relevant? How is it relevant? Is it relevant? So, okay, 10 people liking your post is not the same as 10 huge influencers in the entertainment world liking your post.
Right.
Because there's nothing that happens with those 10 likes from the regular everyday person. It's just 10 people just clicking on like, they see your post. 10 people that don't like really have time for bullshit go, I really like this person's like song. Yeah. I'm gonna follow them too. And they're a music influencer, somebody. That's part of your story. You're like, hey, whatever it may be. I don't even know who would be like a big executive right now. Quincy Jones liked my post.
Right.
Timberland
L.A.
liked my
Reid.
post.
Yeah.
There's a big difference. So like, not to belittle or, say, someone that's not in that position is a nobody, but in essence, they might be a nobody. And it's the same
Right.
thing with like fake radio stations. There's people that may not really be listening to your music, and you're being put on a chart that is irrelevant because it's not tabulated by real people listening to your music.
Right.
There's a lot of those scams out there where it's like people create their own websites and they call it a radio station. Say, I'm going to get you on this radio station. These 10 radio stations. Listen, I make websites too because I've always done my own website stuff over the years. I could do something like that if I wanted to be, sneaky and be like, I'm just going to create like the Mr. Mig network of like radio stations and call them, Mr. Mig FM, and then charge you $1,000 a month to spin on Mr. Mig FM. I've never done anything like that. I would never do something like that. So, because I know the value. There's no real value to the person that's shelling out their hard-earned money. They're trying to get ahead. They're trying not to be continually disappointed, which I find in any business when you're coming up is you're going to find a lot of disappointment. The last thing you need is someone to like bring you down and make it harder for you.
Right. So, and I'm not shitting on like some of these charts or, like, I mean, like the iTunes chart, like there's levels to this in my head, right? You got your iTunes chart. It's accomplishment to hit #1.
It is.
I don't care who you are. It's an accomplishment. But there's levels, like I've had 3 of them. I need more validation. I need the next level. I need that billboard. You know what I'm saying? Like that's that would be, I needed to take me out of my 9 to 5 and in the music.
That's the connection right there. Well, that's it right there.
Right.
How does it elevate
full time?
You want your story to be elevated from where you are, from a guy who works a different career at first, to then becoming a manager in the music business, to then managing hopefully a star, and then that star getting a deal, and then they get Billboard Top 100, Hot 100. And then you can say, I'm the manager of a Billboard Hot 100 charting artist. And to get there, you had to do all these really hard things.
Correct.
And it's a competition. At the end of the day, I used to say that the grind in the music business for me was always like a sport. And I was always super athletic. And you knew me from when I was bodybuilding and I was powerlifting and I was, I took everything that serious. And the music business to me was that serious. It was that. Granted, honestly, I didn't achieve the level of success that I originally thought I could and would have. But there comes a point where you're just like, I really don't want to compete on that level. It's a little bit too much for me. It's the equivalent of like me now literally having no other life other than competing. And I needed to find like a happy medium. But that's what happens when you go from civilian in a job to working your way through the music business to wanting to get that first plaque. And I got that first plaque, and then I got that second, and that 30th one, and that 40th one. So to me, it's like, now I want something different. Plaques don't matter to me. Because to me now, plaques just become like, I have one or two. I have one from Beat Sales, from BeatStars, which is a platform that I sell instrumentals on, which has been a really great business for me in the last 10 years, when not many people were doing it. Getting that first million plaque on BeatStars for selling instrumentals was just as huge as me getting my first triple platinum plaque in the mainstream music world. Yeah. Because it was a whole new venture that I went after. Like, you're going after the first platinum plaque. I was going after having my instrumentals, bought by thousands of people that I've never met in other countries. And then like millions of plays, knowing that people are like listening to just the instrumentals, a lot of them not even knowing who was behind them, that it was just something else that I created under a whole different name too, under Max Beats. MAXXBEATS, Max Beats, after my son Max, by the way.
I know that.
Yeah, I named everything after Max when he was born. Audio Max Studios, Max Beats, and he's 14 now. It's funny, I have to remind him once in a while, like, if you ever doubt how much I love you, think about the fact that my whole life since you were born, everything's been named after you. Like, if that's not inspiration to like do things. But yeah, so like, I understand you're going for the plaque, and I was going for the next thing, and that's human nature. For a lot of us, it's human nature. It's not for everybody. Not everybody is completely goal and career oriented. And I've learned that over the years by asking people like, what do you want to do it yourself? Like, I don't know. I'm like, and I found it hard to believe they didn't know, because I always knew. But there's some people they're happy, they're content. And there's some of us that are like always punching up. We're always striving. We're always looking for like the next thing to exhilarate us and make us feel like we've accomplished something, for ourselves. I feel like that every day still, man. After all these years, I'm working on the next thing right now. Like, I'm just like, what is the next thing? And people think that when you get to a certain level, like you have it made and you're set. It's not true. I was watching even some very famous actors that are struggling after being super successful. Like, what's my next thing? And like, I didn't get paid nearly as much as people thought I did on all these great movies that I was in. And it's like, it starts putting perspective. And like, there's a group of us that just like, we want to keep going, and we do what we do because it's what we do. I don't like to say it's who we are, but it's what we do. And maybe it's who we are, but some of us strive to like find that next great thing, that makes us feel alive and like we know why we were put here. And that was the thing for me, was always thinking like I knew why I was put here on this earth. And like, I think that you're getting to that point where you're just like, you found something that you love and you're like, I really want that next thing. And I want that plaque. And I wanted it too. That was one of my first goals, was like to not be poor, like broke poor, and like, living, wherever I could find a place to live, and like, and to get a plaque. And I was able to achieve those things, within the first 8 years of my journey, and of like the first 8 years of my real journey, because my journey started, like I said, when I was very young, without knowing what it meant. But my real journey started when it was life or death. It was like, you have to pick a career now, because like, you have to do something. What is it going to be? Like, and to me, it was, all right, I went to college for 2 years and I didn't get a degree. And I was like, I guess I'm all in on this because I don't really have anything else. Like, this is what I'm choosing. So that's,
Well, I'm a realist. I know right now it's a passion and it's a side hustle, and the chances of, although I've sitting in boardrooms with some of the biggest executives, I keep downplaying it, but like the positions that I've been in and learned, with Caputo, it's like, man, I'm sitting here talking to I'm talking to a guy that created Lady Gaga. I'm sitting there in his mansion, and we're talking, doing business. It's like, what is going on here? But at the same time, I know it's a lot of work, and I love going out on the road with LFO. I love Brad and going out on the road with those guys in O-Town. Deneen, I love going out on the road with Deneen, and now I want to learn how to more produce, write songs, get my name on some songs, publishing. Because publishing is,
Speaking of LFO, rest in peace, a couple of the guys that
Rich and
passed,
Devin.
and I actually had the pleasure of spending a few days with one of them, Devin Lima, back in the day. I actually stayed at my back then I had an apartment, and wrote some songs with me, and he was really, really a great guy. We had a great time, and
that's crazy. Was he with Mike at the time? Because Mike was his manager.
Well, I don't know. He just came by himself, and like we were introduced from another friend, because I had produced boy bands back in the day too. There was one boy band called No Authority in the early 2000s. I had written like 4 songs on the album, and they did like the Nickelodeon tours back then, and got my first pub deal, and then I worked with like Jesse McCartney's group Dream Street back in the day. So I came into the tail end of the boy band era. Like, unfortunately, like if it was just a few years before that, it would have been a much bigger thing for me, because that was what I was passionate about. But I got in right at the tail end, right before things flipped over to like independent rock, and the boy bands phased out. And but it was good. It worked out well for me. I did really well with it, even in the few short years of that. But then that's how I met Devin, and really great guy, man. And just like very saddened when I heard of his passing. Was it this past year or the year before?
No, it was 17, I think. 18.
Was it 17? Man, I got to tell you, like as I'm getting older, time flies so fast that I feel like things just happened like a year ago, 2 years ago, and it's like 5 years ago. Shit, like that's what happens when you have 5 kids and you have running a business, and things just go like, it's like nonstop. Time really does fly as you get older. It's crazy. So yeah, when I found that out, I was like, man.
That was So Brad's lucky enough to go out there with O-Town, and they do a 15 to 20-minute set of all some of the biggest songs, and he's got the boys behind him, because Devin had a voice. Was probably one of the best around, especially with the boy band. I have to find the
song. I have the song. It's on a DAT tape. For anyone who doesn't know what a DAT tape is, it's a digital audio tape that we used to play back in the studio in a very expensive player, versus like now you can just go on your computer and like use an MP3. So
you have a song with him?
I do. I produced a song on him way back, man. I gotta find it.
Listen? Can you find that for me?
I got to try to find it because I have my DATs in storage. They're all in a case.
I don't want you to. I
No,
mean, I know you got to go through a whole bunch of
but I
stuff.
have the DAT. I actually still have the DAT machine in the studio. So one day I'll bring in the case and maybe plug it. I haven't even turned my DAT machine on in 15 years. I haven't had a need to, so, but I have the song. Yeah, the song, believe it or not, was called Resurrect.
Resurrect. Listen, there's a reason. There's a reason why I want to push you on this, and we could talk offline about that. But
yeah,
I'm going to push you on it if you can find it. I mean, if you can't, you can. It just is what it is. But that's crazy. It
was a brilliant song too, man. It was
that blew my mind.
He was listen. I got to be honest with you. He was teary when we did the song, and we never worked after that. Oddly enough, we actually lost touch after we did like that week of work. And look, a lot came on my plate at that point. I was developing a few acts, including one of the artists we talked about earlier in the early 2000s. The big superstar of the world right now.
Yeah.
I just got into a bunch of projects, and you lose touch with people, and you don't really think much about it. Like even some of my best friends in the music business, we reconnected after not talking for 15, 20 years, and it's like, why did we stop talking? It's just busy, just time flies when you're busy. But I remember when we did that song. I don't want to say this because I don't want to offend anybody else because I don't know. But he did say to me, I think this is one of the best songs I've ever done. And he had tears in his eyes. It was called Resurrect, which kind of, when I found out he passed, it kind of got me a little sad thinking about the name of the song. And like with that music, maybe the music is something that will resurrect his memory. For me, it did. I thought about him right away.
I'm going to ask you in front of everybody here if you could make a valiant effort to find that.
I will. I don't throw things away, so it's got to be on a DAT tape somewhere. I just have everything put away.
Do you label them?
Years.
You label them? You label everything?
Yeah. No, I do. But back then it was like you put 10 songs on one DAT tape, so it's like you label a couple of them and like skip through and like, oh, okay. But with him, I'm sure that it would be labeled pretty clearly, like Devin or something. So I'll look. Yeah, I'll look.
That's an interesting story. Wow, I'm a little taken aback by that. Yeah.
It was really, really great song.
Wow. I'd love to hear it, and I'll talk to you after the show.
I definitely will.
Yeah, I'll talk to you after the show. So, I guess wrapping things up, I guess any advice for up and coming producers that maybe have the skills, don't have the skills yet. Let's start with producers that they want to produce, but they don't really have the skills yet. Like, how do they get better other than going to you and you teaching them?
Yeah, I mean, I am going to obviously throw that out there because I do that and I enjoy doing it. I enjoy doing that. I do one-on-one production classes. I actually have one tomorrow with a young producer that's been coming to me actually weekly in person, but I do online too. But other than that, there's a lot of free content on YouTube. As a matter of fact, even my YouTube channel has a bunch of videos on production.
You do?
Yeah, it's YouTube. It's youtube.com /Max Beats, actually, MAXXBEATS. And either my channel, there's a lot of channels. Like I never really learned from anybody. I mean, I inherently learned from people along the way, but I never actually said like, I don't really know what I'm doing, I'm gonna go learn from somebody. I just kind of like started and like got some gear, at first some inexpensive gear, and then I bumped it up after I had a job, and I was young and saving up some money, bought a keyboard and like a little tape recorder, and like you just start doing it. You just start doing it till you find the way that you do things.
Just like anything else, right?
It really is. And like I don't mean to sound frustrated sometimes with people, but when they ask me sometimes, I'm like, just fucking do it. What do you mean? How do you do it? Like you do it because if you love something, it's never a question of how do you do it. When you love something.
Yeah.
So when people say, how do I do something? A lot of times I inherently take it as laziness, where maybe I shouldn't. I've just been very exploratory growing up. I always like to pull things apart and like look inside them. Like sometimes I wouldn't put them back together. I remember a radio I took apart when I was like 7. Never put it back together. But I took that thing apart because for some reason I wanted to see what was in it. But like I was always exploring things. I was always like trying to like see what was cool about something. And like even to this day, I love to learn. So like even at the level I'm at, I still go on YouTube and like I watch other people's channels, and I never look at anybody and go, oh, ha ha ha, I've done all these records, I have all these credits. Like, what am I going to learn from them? Bullshit. I learn something from somebody all the time. Even though I teach, I still learn. So there's a lot of free resources. It's pretty easy. I think anybody in this day and age knows YouTube and can go on there. And there's even like a bunch of Instagram channels. I see people posting like tips constantly. Just type in on whatever platform you're on, just type in exactly what you're looking for. You're going to find something. And if that doesn't work, you can always hit me up for like some one-on-one classes, you know.
I saw you posted the other day on
yeah, and it's
Facebook.
not expensive. And like I keep it inexpensive because once again, I realize that people that are coming to me to learn are like brand new. They're just wanting to get their feet wet. And you know, why do I do it? Well, I do it for two reasons. Because number one, it makes me happy to teach people, and it also is part of my business model is education. And like I'm creating courses and things like that because you know, listen, there's knowledge here, and I didn't realize that like I should be teaching until my wife told me years ago. She's like you are like the OG of this stuff. Like you have so much you can teach. And at the time, I was like, I don't even like couldn't wrap my head around like why would anybody want to listen to me teach them anything? And then I started realizing like, you know, people were starting to hit me up, and it started taking time, like 10, 15, 20 hours sometimes out of my week. It's like, okay, I could do this, but I got to charge something for it. Of course, just because it's like it's either I'm going to teach people or I'm going to just say no and like say go figure it out yourself and just continue doing what I'm doing. So it's a great it's a great thing, and it also keeps me sharp. Believe it or not, when I'm teaching people, I'm also I'm actually teaching myself when I'm teaching them. It's funny, like I'm talking the process through, and I'm like reinvigorating things that I didn't even think about when I'm doing them. Because when I'm doing them, it's like on autopilot. So it's kind of cool. Yeah, for twofold. So when people want to learn and they're brand new at this, I just suggest to start doing a search. Like there's so many resources out there, free resources, you know, coaches and just everything these days. Like, you know,
it's all out there for you to learn, man.
Yeah, like I'm developing Super Music Academy is something that I'm launching. I'm still working on it. Which that'll be like all my teachings from everything I know at some point. It's very
like a sales funnel. Like a sales funnel, like those guys do, you know.
It's not going to be a sales funnel. It's just going to be a site, and I'm going to let people know it's there. And if they want to learn, they can sign up and they can consume the information that's taken me, you know, by that time, you know, thousands of hours to put it together. So if you want to consume, like you want to work with me, but at your own pace, you just get a little inexpensive membership, and you go through this stuff on your time. You know.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Well.
But that's not yet. That's something I'm working on still.
That's something you're working on. Well, you know, let me know when you do that. I'd love it.
I will. Still kind of like I did all the back end stuff, the website stuff, and I'm getting all that stuff ready. The next will just be sitting down and like have to film it and edit it, and it's a lot. It's a ton of work.
It is a ton of work, but
I've done funnels for other things before in the past. In like the beat sales business, and it took me 6 months at one point to create one funnel that like really didn't amount to much at the end of it for me. It was just like it was a cool experience. Cool experience. It worked for some of the other production products that I have. Yeah. But you know, I'm more into like creating the content and just letting you know it's there, and like if you want it, there you go. There's your little online academy.
That's not a bad idea.
But yeah, that's for people that are non-experienced, and I mean people that are already experienced in production. I pretty much the same thing. I'm experienced. I just go to YouTube and like try to see if I can find some cool new things to mess around with, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just gonna ask you, I'm gonna wrap it up with you, and I'm gonna ask you just to hang out for a minute in the green room. Enjoy the Cokes and the Cavassier in there.
Up in my fridge?
Up in the green room.
In your green room, up in my fridge.
In my green room. Thanks, Mr. Mig. I appreciate you coming on, and I
love you, brother, man. I always love talking to you, and I appreciate you actually having me on. It's really great, and I love what you're doing. I love the name of the show too.
And it's not a play on, I guess. Like people are probably like, I'm not going on that. They're saying I'm not famous.
I think it's funny.
It's like, no, man. Like people that I know who think they're famous, they use the word famous, and then people that look at me are like, oh man, you go on tour, you're famous. I'm like, I'm not even close to being like. It's just a play on everything. That's all. You know what I mean?
My kids have asked me, you know, when they're younger, like, Daddy, are you famous? I'm like,
right.
By what definition?
What's the definition?
I always said this when people ask me, because you know there was a time where I could be considered, as I was coming up, I was talked about a lot.
Sure.
You know,
I see the magazine
interviews and I was on shows, and But I never like that's to me, that's not famous. That's like I always said I was kind of like inter-industry famous at the time, where like the people that mattered to me at the time were the people that were writing checks for me to produce music for them. So if I was famous to them, I was cool about that. Like
that's all that
Mr. Mig
you gotta
up,
care
he'll
about.
do the project. Yeah. That was what I considered to be my fame was like, yeah, I'm inter music industry famous, and I was cool with that back then. So
right. That's
fame is different,
funny.
man. It's like fame is a whole different thing, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that's all. There's just nothing,
really was never interested in that, honestly, for me.
Me? Well, I also started this podcast because I think I'm tired of watching the artist break big and then leave the people behind that really did it for him.
That's happened.
The develop
many times.
right. Well, guess what? With what I'm starting here and with who I'm working with now, there's going to be credit go around all around. We're not going to allow that to happen. It should be that way.
The worst is when you work on a project and you love working with the artist that you're working with and you think you have a great relationship with them, and then they go off and the record that you've done, they're pushing it, but they're never talking about you, and they're never never really, they don't come back to you. They've already talked you out of percentages because it was what you thought was the right thing to do under the circumstances of them maybe being independent and having to spend more on their promo. And all right, I'll make it easy. But it's like, listen, take care of yourselves out there, producers and writers and people. There are some people that will take advantage of your good nature. I think I have a good nature. I really do. I really believe that. I've always tried to.
And that's the problem. I have a good nature. The people I work with have good natures, and that's why that's why we kind of, the people that step on our necks to go.
I've been stepped on plenty of times. By people that actually went on to make it. I would say like equally as large as I had it in my career at one point, or maybe even bigger, and never think about the fact that like what I gave them, what I gave them to help them, that did nothing for me.
Right.
Like the worst is when you give up your production credits because someone's begging you to give up your production credits. It's happened a couple times. Right. Because they need it to be their credits, or they need it to be someone else's for it to work in the situation of the label that they're working with. Maybe like it's one of their guys. It's happened. So I understand. I'm on board. I'm on board with what you're doing because it can be very unfair, and it's the one thing that it's one of the things that I do say frequently when I'm having private conversations. And since we're public right now, I'll say it anyways. Like I have conversations with some colleagues on how shitty some of this can really be, and you have to really protect yourself and take care of yourself, because we're in a business where not everybody thinks like us. Not everybody thinks of fairness and people want, it's about me, and I need to become famous by any means necessary. And the people that seek all that fame, a lot of them really have they got mental issues as far as I'm concerned, and it really is what's the word, narcissism sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why I did all this. I had a voice. I had a voice, and I wanted to turn into something else too. But for now, I just wanted to voice my, and give this spotlight to people like you, and because I had another podcast and it did really well, so I'm good at this podcast thing.
Yeah, and, I think you have a great format and great personality for it.
So, well, thank you, sweetheart. I appreciate that.
It's okay, baby.
Just hang out in the green room while I wrap this up, and I want to talk to you real quick.
Yeah, I want to go have a couple virtual shots.
Thank you, Mr. Mig. I appreciate you.
Great, man. Thank you.
All right, you got it. My man, Mr. Mig, great guy, great producer. I hope some of you producers out there got something from it. If not, reach out to him. He's a nice guy. He'll show you the ropes. I hope to sit with him and write on some songs eventually. I know we'll be in the studio for a couple times in the next month or so. So I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, thanks everybody for tuning into the Not So Famous podcast with me, Manager Marco. I'm on all social media at the Manager Marco. You can download my podcast, or you can listen to it at Spotify, Apple, wherever podcasts are streamed or downloaded. You can go up there, iTunes. I'm gonna have a contest soon, give out some hoodies and stuff, some home team hoodies and some not so famous hoodies. Just want to build this thing up a little more. So thank you, everybody. I'm working on a couple of guests for the next couple of weeks, so Be patient. And I appreciate you guys. And don't forget, don't take shit from anybody. Peace.